Please welcome Chairman Pete Aguilar.
Hello, hello. Thank you so much, colleagues. It is unquestioned that the reason House Democrats have been so successful is because of the close cooperation between our caucus and the White House. Specifically, the work of Leader Jeffries and then Speaker Nancy Pelosi working in close coordination with our friends at the White House. This year alone, we've avoided a default, we prevented a shutdown, and stand ready to meet the national security needs that this country faces. We are working in lockstep to put people over politics. And if we are going to truly finish the job, we need that strong partnership. And we need to be able to work in tandem with our friends at the White House to deliver for the American people. And the person responsible to help guide our caucus and to instill unity of purpose is our Democratic leader, Hakeem Jeffries. Good afternoon, House Democrats. To Chairman Aguilar. Good afternoon, House Democrats. So good to see all of you. To Chairman Aguilar, Vice Chair Lou, Whip Clark, Speaker Emerita Pelosi, all of my amazing Democratic colleagues in the House. It's a high honor and a distinct privilege to have this opportunity to present someone who really needs no introduction. President Biden is a good man who's been working hard to make life better for everyday Americans, and together we will finish the job. Now, these are challenging times, and we're working together to address issues of concern to the American people related to the economy and housing affordability, national security, public safety, and of course our challenges at the border. But let me be clear. Because of the leadership of President Biden, working with House Democrats and our colleagues in the Senate, we have made real progress on behalf of the American people through the lens of how it started versus how it's going. How it started versus how it's going. When Joe Biden first took office, he inherited a once-in-a-century COVID-19 pandemic that shut everything down. Because of the leadership of President Biden, working with House Democrats, we put shots in arms, money in pockets, kids back in school, and now the American people have the freedom to spend time with their families without being masked up or sheltering in place. When President Biden first took office, in Washington, D.C., it had been Infrastructure Week every other week. But nothing got done until President Biden showed up. Because of the leadership of President Biden working with House Democrats, we are finally fixing our crumbling bridges, roads, tunnels, our airports, our water systems, our sewer systems, our mass transportation systems, and now high-speed internet access is available to millions of Americans for $30 less a month. When President Biden first took office, the American people were understandably dismayed, were uncertain about the prospects of ever being able to do something about the gun violence epidemic in the United States of America. Because of the leadership of President Joe Biden working with House Democrats, we passed gun safety legislation for the first time in 30 years that will save lives and lay the foundation for us to do more. How it started versus how it's going. When President Biden first took office, there were millions of veterans who had served this country, suffering from brutal exposure to burn pits, toxic substances, and Agent Orange, and were without access to adequate health care. Because of the leadership of President Joe Biden, working with House Democrats, there are now more than 4 million veterans in the United States of America who have access to the health care that they need to live a life of dignity and respect. How it started versus how it's going. When President Joe Biden first took office, the country, the world being ravaged by extreme weather events like hurricanes, powerful storms, wildfires, and floods. And many Americans, particularly younger ones, uncertain about whether anything would ever be done to change the situation. Because of the leadership of President Joe Biden, working with House Democrats, we invested in the largest way in the history of the world in combating the climate crisis to turn the situation around and ensure there will be clean water, clean air, and clean energy in every single community. Can I give you one more? Yes. Can I give you one more? Yes. When Joe Biden first took office, the cost of insulin for the average American family was $4,000 a year. Because of the leadership of President Joe Biden, working with House Democrats, the cost of insulin right now for millions of Americans is $35 a month. How it started versus how it's going. Under the leadership of President Joe Biden, we have made tremendous progress here in the United States of America. Joe Biden is a compassionate public servant, a skilled leader, the comeback kid who is helping the American turnaround story. We know that President Joe Biden is a man with a plan to finish the job on behalf of the American people. And so it is my honor to present to you the 46th President of the United States of America, the Honorable Joseph Robinette Biden.
Good to be with you all. Stenny. Please, thank you. If I were smart, I should leave now. Thank you all so very, very much. I don't see her, but I hear my buddy Nancy Pelosi's here. Are you here, Nancy? Nancy, thank you. I love you. I love you, really, truly. And I see Steny Hoyer's here. Steny's been living in the western shore of Delaware for a long time. Good to see you, Steny. And is Jim Clyburn here? Well, if Jim is here, he's one of the reasons why I'm standing here. I want to thank him. Akeem and Catherine and Pete, thank you to all of you, Let me say a few things before I get started with our discussion. First, I'm not going to be very long, I promise. First, the special counsel released their findings today about their look into my handling of classified documents. I was pleased to see they reached the conclusion I believed and knew all along they would, that there are no charges should be brought in this case. As many of you know, this was an exhaustive investigation going back literally more than 40 years. 40 years when I became a United States Senator when I was a kid. I was a kid, 29 years old. Special counsel acknowledged I cooperated completely. I did not throw up any roadblocks. I sought no delays. In fact, I was so determined to give special counsel what they needed, I went forward with a 5-hour in-person interview over the 2 days of October the 8th and 9th last year, even though Israel had just been attacked by Hamas on the 7th. I was in the middle of handling an international crisis, but I was especially pleased to see the special counsel make clear the stark differences between this case and Donald Trump. As the special counsel wrote, and I quote, Several material distinctions between Mr. Trump's case and Mr. Biden's are clear. And by the way, this is a Republican counsel. Most notably, after given multiple chances, this is the continuation of the quote, he returned classified documents and avoided prosecution. Mr. Trump allegedly did the opposite. This is the continuing quote. According to the indictment, he has not only refused to return documents for many months, he also obstructed justice by enlisting others to destroy evidence and then lie about it. In contrast, Mr. Biden turned in classified documents to the National Archives, the Department of Justice, consented to a search of multiple locations, including his homes, and sat for a voluntary interview, and in other ways cooperated with the investigation. That's the distinction, among others. Bottom line is the special counsel in my case decided against moving forward with any charges, and this matter is now closed. I'll continue to do what I've always done, stay focused on my job, like you do, of my job of being president. That means going to work with all of you every single day I can. Thank you for being great partners. Just this week, House Democrats showed how united you are. You defeated Mayorkas' impeachment resolution. And I had no doubt he'd get out of his hospital bed and come in and vote. No, I'm not joking. I talked to him a little bit. Not after, not before. You defeated the Israeli-only supplemental. They weren't easy votes for you, but all of you came through in a big way. All of this just shows that when we're united, we can beat House Republicans in their cynical political games. And you've been incredible partners that have delivered historic results for the American people. I've traveled to many of your districts. I see the results on how you came through one of the toughest periods in our nation's history. Hakeem just mentioned many of those accomplishments. Vaccinating America, rebuilding America, bringing prices down, delivering every day for everyday Americans. Recent Washington Post headline, never thought I'd see this for a Democrat, says, falling inflation and rising growth give the United States the world's best recovery, end of quote. Because of you. No, I mean it. I may have some good idea, but you got it done. But I'd like to use my time to talk about the future. You know what it means to finish the job, from my perspective. We made progress, making the biggest corporations only begin to pay their fair share. We were able to keep everything in place when the Republicans kept changing the deals we made about spending and the like, right? Remember those days? Well, with the minimum remember those 50 corporations that didn't pay a penny in taxes, made $40 billion? Well, guess what? They paid a corporate tax of 15%, and we're able to keep everything paid for, and we still cut the deficit. We helped pay for historic investments and reduce the federal deficit. But we're not done. Trump's $2 trillion tax cut overwhelmingly benefited the super wealthy and biggest corporations and exploded the deficit. And it's coming up pretty soon for a decision of what we're going to do. He's already said he wants to not only keep it, but increase it. Finishing the job means getting the Trump tax cut, gutting the Trump tax cut, closing the loophole for billionaire minimum tax. You know, we went from 750 billionaires in America before the pandemic to 1,000 now. You know what the average tax they pay is in federal tax? 8.3%. Billionaire, those 1,000. 8.3%. That's less than a teacher or a firefighter. And I go down the list. I promised a billionaire minimum tax of 25%. If we did that, it would raise $440 billion. 25%, $440 billion could pay for child care, elder care, and so much more, and reduce the deficit. You know, we're also planning for a long-term effort to, I think we have to deal with the tax structure in a way. I mean, no matter where I go, whether I'm speaking to business roundtable, whoever I'm speaking to, I say, raise your hand if you think the present tax system is fair. No, I'm not joking. Think about it in practical terms. Is it fair? Is it remotely fair? Finish the job of beating Big Pharma again to lower prescription costs for everybody. And by the way, you know, when my Republican friends were taking us on that, but it not only lowers, you talked about dealing with insulin, $35 a month. saved the individual a lot of money. But guess what? It saved the taxpayers $160 billion. Reduced the debt by $160 billion, what we did, what you all did, Pharma. I mean it. I mean, the things we're doing not only help people, but they're reducing the deficit of good economic policy. Because Medicare doesn't have to pay those exorbitant prices. We've got to finish the job means $35 insulin, not just for the, Medicare, but like we originally had, and they wouldn't continue it, $35 insulin for everybody, all Americans. Lower drug prices for dozens of other prescriptions. We got that into the law. It's coming up. And getting even more Americans health insurance by protecting and expanding the Affordable Health Care Act. You guys have done this. We got to finish the job means making housing more affordable, more accessible. It means protecting and strengthening the Social Security system and Medicare. The Republicans want to put on a chopping block. Remember the last State of the Union when we talked about what they're... Bless me, Father. And finishing the job means protecting fundamental freedoms. Passing the John Lewis Voting Rights Act, finally. And making Roe v. Wade the law of the land. The law of the land. It means beating the NRA again, banning assault weapons, high-capacity magazines, which we did before. Finish the job means continuing our fight to save the planet with the most aggressive action on climate ever in the history of the world. With every new bridge, every new factory, every new high-speed rail internet, with every poisonous lead pipe removed. I see something else happening now, and in the future. Pride's returning. When we pushed all these programs, I said, I'm going to be a president for everybody, whether you live in a red state or a green state. I know it drives some of you crazy that a lot of these things are happening in red states, but the Americans need help. You know, some of your more interesting colleagues go out and hold press conferences of the things they said was a disaster and was almost immoral. What's that blonde-haired woman's name anyway? She's talking about all that's going on in her district. Oh, God, anyway. Look, what happened to a lot of people, particularly in the near Midwest and the Midwest and the Northwest, is that, you know, for years and years, you go by the factory that employed 800, 1,000, 1,200 people. Mom had worked there, Dad had worked there, Grandpa, Grandma, and they had pride in what they did. And all of a sudden, corporate America decided, and it really did over the last 10 years, decided, you know, I'd rather take my factory, move it overseas because the labor is cheaper, and then import the product. Not anymore. Not anymore. Guess what, folks? There's a provision in the law that says that I didn't even know it existed until about 8 years ago. And that is when they had legislation in the 30s dealing with the issue of whether or not labor unions had a right to organize, what protections they had, et cetera. There was a provision in the law that even Democratic presidents didn't either know about or pay much attention to. It said, any money you appropriate, the Congress appropriates, and it goes to the President of the United States for public purpose, that president should hire an American worker and American companies to do it. Really. Well, we're investing in America. That's what you're doing. We're investing in America. We're bringing back pride to communities, pride in our country. And so I want to thank you for doing the job you were elected to do. It matters to the American people, and we're in a position to win in 2024, I think. That brings me to the second point. We have to make the contrast, the choice, crystal clear through our friends on the other side, make it easy for us. Time and again, Republicans show they're a party of chaos and disunion. This is not your father's Republican Party. They shout about a problem, but then do nothing to solve the problem. The bottom line is Republicans have to decide, who did they serve? This is not hyperbole. Who did they serve? Donald Trump or the American people? You had worked so hard, bipartisan group, so hard for so long to deal with the border and all the other issues we have in that appropriation. And guess what? Donald Trump allegedly, I can't prove this, I'm told, called people and said, if you support that, I'm coming after you. I don't know what the exact words were, but I'm coming after you. Are they here to solve a problem or just to weaponize for political attacks those problems? I know our answer. We're here to serve the American people. It's not like we're here, we're Democrats. That's the job. Serve the American people. We have to make that clear. If we do, we win. Just look at 2020. We weren't supposed to do well, remember? We won, in spite of a lot of things. 2022, the red wave was coming, and guess what? It crashed up on a rock. In 2023, every close race we won. When voters have a choice between what we stand for and what Trump and the MAGA Republicans stand for, we win. Which makes Trump and his MAGA friends losers. When we win, we have to do the old-fashioned politics way. We have to get out the vote, an aggressive grassroots operation to get folks registered and get out the vote. And here's the final point I want to make. I can't take anything for granted. We can't. In 2020, I ran because I thought everything in this country stood for, everything we believed in, everything that made America America was at risk, and I believed that. And I spoke to that. And I think people thought I was being hyperbolic at the time. Joe, what do you mean our democracy is at risk? Seriously, remember I made that, you may not, but I made a speech in Independence Hall at the beginning. What do you mean we're in a battle for the soul of America? Well, people don't say that anymore. They know the stakes are higher than ever. We've made more progress in 3 years because of you than most presidents have in 8 years. But it can all be wiped out in this election. So we have to stay focused on what we have to do. We must keep the White House. We must keep the Senate, and we must take back the House. With all of you sworn in again, and Hakeem Jeffries, your Speaker of the House. And when we do that, we'll be able to look back and say something few generations can say. The American democracy is at risk, and you saved it. Look, we just have to remember who the hell we are. We're the United States of America. I mean it. There's nothing beyond our capacity when we work together. So God bless you all, and thank you for all you do. Thank you, thank you, thank you.
Please remain in your seats. The program will resume shortly.